Hello, friends. Hello, Serpent. What's up? Saturday before Easter. Hello. All right. Well, what I'm doing is I've been working on my AwesomeWM configuration, and in doing so, I've also set it up like I did with BSPWM, like I did with DWM, and like I did with OpenBox. So what I'm going to do is let me go ahead and open up a browser, and let's go to my GitHub. So you can see what I'm talking about. Basically, look at the repos here. And I do have a lot to talk about in terms of the Butter scripts, but that is not the intent here. So 2 days ago, I finished up my awesome WM setup script. I've always had the BSPWM setup, the DWM set. Not always, I shouldn't say that. Fairly recently, I've been working on DWM, OpenBox, and BSPWM. So you can see overall, I like the tiling window managers, and then I've got OpenBox as kind of the outlier. But it's such a good project; it didn't need to be left out of the equation. I am saying that OpenBox, AwesomeWM is so good that I think that I've been underselling it a little bit in terms of how powerful the Lewis scripting language is. The fact that you don't necessarily, I mean, it is kind of an offshoot of DWM without all the patches that you need for DWM to be as special as it is, okay? So what am I doing? I am going to basically, I'm going to do a quick install using this awesome WM setup, okay? Now, I did want to, let me go ahead and close this. I want to make sure that that if you are interested, that you go and you look at the GitHub page and really kind of review the documentation. I spend an enormous amount of time in documenting all the different things that I think are important for these projects. So I do have a few, I didn't install all the layouts, but I do have a few. It shows how the configuration files are laid out. Now, I did this about a year ago, okay? And I had, and if you know anything about AwesomeWM, you could theoretically and legitimately use one configuration file. And it would get very lengthy. So what I've done is try to modular, make the more, be more modular when it comes to the configuration. So I have broken it into all of these kind of like subcategories, basically. I want to make sure that I'm on. Am I talking? Did somebody hear me? Anybody hear me? So it doesn't look, I mean, I don't know that I'm, okay, it just doesn't look like the video has changed at all. Hold on. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Okay, this looks normal now. I don't know if you guys saw it. I was doing things. It doesn't look like the video was changing at all. So anyway, so what I'm doing right now is basically talking about, I'm talking about all the different kind of components. that are within this particular configuration file. The biggest parts of it, obviously, are the widgets and the Y bar and yeah, variables and stuff like that. We'll go over those things when we actually get this installed. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically start from scratch. Okay. Doing well, doing well. Happy Saturday to you all. Okay, cool. Very good. Thank you. Oops, I probably should have stopped that. So I need to get my USB stick in for Debian, and give me a sec. There we go. And let's install Debian. This is going to be the shortest, you know. I'm not going to install Debian the way I would normally install it, but this is going to be probably the fastest way to do this. Okay, let's do this. And if I, you know, for those of you that always say, oh, you go too fast. No, dude, this is really, I just like click, click. This is literally one of the fastest ways to install Debian and have it be usable. And like I said, I'm not actually installing anything other than basically what you would for a minimal install or a server install. Okay. Okay, cool. So network, here we go. There we go. Cool. Yeah. It looks like sometimes when I do these like streams, for whatever reason, no. It kind of like hangs up, and maybe it's me not understanding YouTube or OBS and stuff like that. I'm not very good with it. It's just facts. And you know, here's the thing: don't really care. I just don't really care that much about getting proficient at video editing and shit like that. So, all right, let me go with create. Yes. Oh, I already did that. Sorry. And let's go with just easy stuff. 2 gigs at the beginning, and let's go with an EFI system partition. And let's go down, and let's create all the rest, and we'll put that just on ext4 because why not? And let's go ahead and finish. And no, we don't want to go back. And yes, we want to write the changes. Okay. Let's install the base system. Getting ready for Easter, friends, and going to, you know, getting food for the family, and going to do some barbecue tomorrow. How's everybody doing? All right, so I wanted to get through this. Oh, good. I'm glad. Want to get through this maybe within an hour. I can't imagine it actually taking that long. Probably 45 minutes at the most. Happy Easter to you. Yeah. Yep. So we're going to do the there's nothing normal about like Kubernetes stuff. that's a hard day, bro. That's a hard day. All right, let's go with this. Gonna do ribs tomorrow, barbecue, smoked ribs, baked beans, potato salad, fruit. It's gonna be delish. Little does anyone know. This is not something I talk about a great deal, but I am a Kansas City certified barbecue judge, and so I am very, very particular about doing ribs and barbecue and smoked meats and stuff like that, because why wouldn't I be? All right, let's go down. Sure. Oh, let me go back. Go back. And yes, and no. Okay. I'm going to add the back ports just because. Got 17 people watching as far as I can tell. Cool. All right, well, we're almost done with the install, so we'll get to the good stuff in a sec. Okay. Hello from Florida in the US of A. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, let's get through this. No, I don't want a desktop environment. Never will I want a desktop environment. Thank you. Okay. Once we get through this, then it's all gravy. Okay. I don't know. I should have timed that. It seemed pretty quick, I think. Nope. Yes. And nope. And let's finish. So I've been doing a little bit more in terms of like live streaming. I don't know why. It's just, I think that sometimes I just have an extra hour and I figure, well, I might as well. I have done a few videos recently, but overall, I kind of like just showing off what I've been working on. And that's kind of what I've been doing on these live streams, just kind of like demonstrating what I've been doing with my time. Okay, so we are going to get to basically a TTY, because Debian is going to be, like I said, a minimal install. There we go. All right, so I will try to blow this up so that you guys can see. So dpkg reconfigure console setup. Okay. And let's go this, and let's go down to Terminus and make this as large as possible. And there you go. So, okay. That's as big as I can get it for right now. So as far as text on the screen. So let's go with sudo apt install git micro and zram tools, just to do something quickly. So let's go ahead and clear the screen and say sudo micro and then etc default ZRAM swap. And I'm just going to uncomment 2 lines just to get through this. Hey, D-dubs. Let's go in. And let's go ahead and save that and close that. And let's sudo, oh, I got default. There we go. Sudo system ctl restart ZRAM. Okay. And let's git clone https://github.com/ and then AwesomeWM setup. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this. Let me go ahead and clear, and let's go into Awesome setup. Okay. So there's really only one thing in the initial directory, and that is the install script. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to say micro install. So let's just take a excuse me, a quick look at the script itself. You guys see okay? So what we're doing is, okay, we're basically going step by step of what is absolutely needed in order to get through installing AwesomeWM. There is this check that I put in the event that you already have Awesome installed. It basically will back up and timestamp the configuration directory. I thought that was an important thing, and then it will go ahead and put the files in the right .config directory, okay? And then it will go through the installation process. Now again, this is my kind of curated, it's my curated packages that I'm using specifically for this project. And granted, I probably could have put this in a more, nicer way so that I could display it, but I put it all in one line. So if you are ever interested in looking at seeing which packages were curated specifically for this project, then you're just you can simply look at it. Now again, not everything is exactly minimal, so I'm putting Genie in because that's my kind of go-to text editor. And if you want, you can simply remove that from this list, and it actually installs all the plugins that I'm using as well. So it's all installing Pipewire, it's installing Nala. Micro is already installed for that matter. And then a couple things, including LightDM and Lua check. Let me go ahead back to the beginning. It's also going to start a couple of the services. It's going to create some directories, including a screenshots directory. And then it goes into some of the required dev packages to build. You're going to need like CMake and Meson and Ninja Build, basically to get through the PyCom script. Okay, those are the things that are necessary for PyCom. But then again, you're going to need something for FastFetch. I think actually the only thing that you need 100%. Oh no, you do need CMake. I take that back. Okay, I'm using WesTerm currently. Now I will say that this portion, not all of this script is actually going to stay. Because going forward, I am going to start calling portions of this script to another GitHub project so that I can make the actual install as lean as possible, and then I can actually just go back and install, like for example, if I'm installing FastFetch for 4 different window managers, all different all separate projects. Why should I do like the same code? And then if I do end up changing the code, why change all 4 projects? So the idea is to go and change it in one place and have it be used for all the projects. You know what I'm saying? So this is not ideal going forward, and I will be making changes. But for today, this works great. You know, this is going to work. This is going to work fine. Not to mention, WesTerm is kind of its own project at my Butter Scripts at GitHub now, as well as there's an install fonts and install theming. So all of these things can actually be taken off of the installation part of the install script, and well, not all, not completely. It's going to be called to GitHub. Yes, I know. I've heard somebody talk about making it modular. Yes, I understand that. So anyway, so then basically what it's doing is it is calling all these subroutines to get through it, and then the installation is complete. So yeah, that's the idea. And yes, D-dubs, I understand that is something we've been talking about probably for months now. So let's go and quit this and let's get it started. I'm just going to hit install. It's going to say, do you really want to? Yes, I do. So I'm going to hit yes, and we're off. Okay. So yeah, I appreciate that, by the way. So what I'm going to be doing is basically calling to a different project that just will house the scripts to make this very, very streamlined. So really all you really will need is, I don't know, maybe I want to say under 20 lines of code to actually, for that, because the scripts themselves are getting larger. Like the installation of PyCom is not that big, but when I start putting in some of the checks, and if PyCom is already installed, then what do you do, and so on. Same thing with FastFetch. I want not just FastFetch to build, but I've also put the 3 different configuration files in the project so that it gets moved over simultaneously. And then, like I said, there's other things like the installation of nerd fonts. And I have a font script that, see, this one is it's curated. It's only going to install 5 or 6 nerd fonts or something like that. The one that I have on my Butterscripts GitHub directory, that has I think 11 or 12. So but they're small in terms of how much they're actually adding to how much disk space it actually takes up. Very small in terms of it's not very bloated, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There are certain font packages that are hundreds of megabytes. The ones that I'm picking are more like 30, 30 megabytes, as opposed to, I think AwesomeWM is in the 300 megabyte range or something like that. Thank you. So while this is streaming, I'm streaming. So while this is running through the installation, I wanted to take a minute to thank people that are here. It looks like there's 27 of you watching the stream. I'm always blown away by the people that take time out, especially in a live setting, to join and promote not just me, but the Linux community. I'm always very appreciative of those of you that have given your time to either watch the videos that have already been done or to watch a live stream. Appreciate you, definitely. So, what we did this okay. So I'm addressing a Keef right now. You have a T490. I'm not good with hardware, so I think a T490 is a Lenovo ThinkPad. Pretty sure. And You don't want to use GNOME or XFCE, and I appreciate that. I will say that we talked a little bit about window managers on the podcast 2 weeks ago. And basically, the thought was if you were stuck on a desert island and you only had one window manager to go to and use for eternity, what would that be? Okay. I chose BSPWM. Okay. I don't use BSPWM in every day. It's always seemingly always on my machine. I am using BSPWM on a very, very sparse build on my. I have a laptop that I don't use very often. I think it's an Asus. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is, and it's a notebook. Very lightweight, 8 gigs of RAM, and a decent processor. And I definitely have BSPWM on that one. And again, if you are a tiling window manager, I would highly recommend you using or trying out BSPWM. Okay. If you say, you know what, Drew, because you're a GNOME user or an XFCE user, and those are the things that you may have, those are the things you may have tried and are more of a floating window manager user, I would say try OpenBox. Again, now this is not the latest and greatest, guys. I mean, because I'm pimping like X11 projects still, and these are, especially with BSPWM and OpenBox, these are 2 projects basically that I would say are feature complete. They're not being worked on any longer. Is that a bad thing? No, not to me. Not to me. But if you are saying, you know what, Drew, I can't do it. I have to go. I'm moving into Wayland, and I don't want to. I don't want to be on X11 anymore. And there are use cases for that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with like, especially if you're on a laptop, a ThinkPad, a notebook, something like that. I would say I would give it a try, especially since you have, it's like nothing ventured. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I am installing AwesomeWM, and if you want to try this, you're welcome to. I would say if you are a beginner user, never use AwesomeWM, never, because you are putting yourself in a precarious situation by looking at the actual code for all the configuration, and the configuration files are immense. With BSPWM, I've got basically, I don't even know, maybe 50 lines of code, and that's a fairly like complex window manager. If you are a floating window manager user, and you are, if you like OpenBox, or if you haven't tried OpenBox, I would definitely try to use OpenBox. The one that I built fairly recently, I think is pretty good, actually. Pretty good. It is the configuration files. If you don't have to look at configuration files, then yeah, if you just want to use mine, fine. You probably would never have to go and like tweak it. But with OpenBox, it's an XML configuration, and it's so verbose. I've tried to make it as modular as possible by putting in really good comment boxes, basically saying, oh, okay, here's where the configuration for here's where the configuration for your key bindings are, for example. Okay. And I try to make it as modular as possible. But to Donald's credit, though, it's like, OpenBox is very good, and he says BSP is dead simple, and that is a fact. In fact, it is a bash script, basically. Okay, so yes, I'm going to replace, and there it is. So I just talked the entire time. You're welcome. Okay, so we are going to go and log in to LightDM. Hello, there we go. Okay. All right, and there it is. There's my configuration of AwesomeWM. I like the colors. I mean, I've used the colors in this particular build. I have been I've been using, like I said, AwesomeWM very sparsely in the last 6 months, I would say. But this, Nate from our podcast said if I had to choose one, I would choose AwesomeWM. And I thought to myself, let me see if I can build something for him if he's not that interested in like learning Lua scripting, which is what, if you want to extend AwesomeWM, you need a little bit of a smattering of Lua scripting. So parts of the screen, okay? Up here, you are looking at what layouts are there. I only put in like a few. So there's tile left, and then a few others. Spiral is probably one that I would consider. It's very BSPWM-like. And then tile. So I guess that's 5, okay? As far as number of tags, okay, let's make sure that tags is the operative word here. So as far as number of tags, I've chose 12. That seems like a lot, and probably is for most people. I tend to use them. That's why I put 12 tags in, or workspaces. Okay. Yes. So this is part of Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I'm answering Tankyard. Yes. AwesomeWM has a native bar. It's basically called a Y bar, WIBAR. And yes, I have an entire configuration dedicated to this bar. Okay. So it is built in, kind of like Qtile has its own bar. AwesomeWM has its own bar. I used kind of the native bar for my DWM as well. I mean, it's just I'm using SL status for DWM. Overall, though, I would say, like we were talking about BSPWM, it uses a very modular, so it doesn't have key bindings. You have to use XXHKD. You have to use polybar if you want a bar. You don't have to use polybar. You can use something else. You can use lemon bar or what have you, even tint too. Okay. You have choices, but for this project with AwesomeWM, yes, I'm using the native bar associated with AwesomeWM. Okay. Now, first thing I do want to show you is Super Shift, or Super H rather. Okay. Super H. All you have to do now, by default, it is Super S. So I changed this key binding. Super H means help. Okay, Super H, help. And what AwesomeWM does better than anybody else is it looks at your configuration file and says, oh, these are all the key bindings. And so it then parses that out to this particular screen. Okay, and I didn't have to build anything to get this to work. So all I did was change the key binding for this this helper, and which is awesome. Okay, which is AwesomeWM. Thanks, which is really good. Oh, thanks, appreciate you, the hunter. Okay, so that's it. That's it. So Super H gets you this screen as part of my build. Okay. Let me go ahead and close this. As far as a terminal, I'm just going to use Super Enter, okay? And that is, this Super Enter is my Lua for WesTerm. So WesTerm is the terminal, and I'm using Lua not just for the configuration files, but for the WesTerm, the AwesomeWM configuration and WesTerm share one thing, and that is a Lua configuration. So if you want to go all into Lua, you can definitely use WesTerm and have some control over your config. So what I want to do next is, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, let me go into my .config, okay, and then I'm going to clone my NeoVim just as a demonstrator more than anything else, okay, github.com/drewgriff/nvim, okay. And so let's go into NeoVim, and then ls, okay. So let's, I'm going to install the .nvim. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, for those of you that are Debian users and have been on stable for a really long time, the version of NeoVim, the version of NeoVim that's on the Debian repos is like 0.7 something, and right now we're already up to 0.11. So it's completely unusable. So what I've done is basically create this Debian package for you. It will have the latest version of NeoVim if you are a NeoVim user. Okay, so let's just go ahead and install that really quickly. As you can tell, I'm also using Nala as the package manager. Okay. And then, so let's just go with V. Okay. There we go. I jacked it up in a good way, Dubs, or is that a bad way? Because when you say jacked up, it means I did something wrong. I jacked up the WesTerm config. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let me go ahead and close this. And I'm going to go to Awesome. And so the RC Lua file, let's take a look, all right? So the rc.lua file, what it's doing is basically it's telling you that all the components within the configuration. So when it says modules.libraries, it's going to the modules subdirectory and then looking for the libraries.lua file. Okay, same thing with variables, and then modules. All of these basically are their own Lua files. So modules.ybar to talk about that real quick. Okay, so let's do that. Control E. All right, and modules, and let's just take a look because the ybar is right there. Okay, can you guys see the text? Okay, I could definitely pump it up a little bit if that's not okay. So as far as the ybar is concerned, I set the height and the opacity. It also will put in certain widgets. So each one of these things is basically a widget that has been defined in the widgets.lua file. So yeah, this is not the most straightforward way to do, well, I mean, it is a straightforward and modular way to do this, okay? But it is not the simplest way in terms of, it's not the simplest, how do I say this basically? When you're talking about something as complex as AwesomeWM, there is no simple way. This is one of the more simple ways in terms of like modularity. But when it comes to comparing it to something like BSPWM completely simplistic compared to this. Okay. So what it's doing here is it's saying left widgets. All right. It's going to have the layout box. It's going to separate it. And then it's going to put the tag list in. Okay. Which is what you're seeing here. So it's the layout box and then the tag list. And then we get down here to the middle widget, which is the window title. So even if I was to, let's say, open up Thunar, you can see that the window title comes up center of screen in the middle of the Y bar. Okay. If I change, so I'm just going to hit super left arrow and then right arrow. You're looking at if you're looking at this window title up here, you'll see that it will change. Okay. That's all that's really doing. So it's not like crazy. Okay. In terms of CPU, memory, clock, volume, and a Bluetooth widget. That's what you're looking at right there. CPU, memory, clock, volume, and a Bluetooth widget. Okay. Hello, hello, hello from Germany. Hello from Florida, Central Florida in the U.S. Okay, so that is pretty much it, though. As far as the Y bar is concerned, this is the extent of this script, which is not, like I said, the idea was to keep it as like clean and as modular as possible. Now, when you get into like looking at the actual widget, let's take a look at that real quick because that's a beast. Oops, I'm going to. There we go. Let's go to widgets. Okay. So when we look at the widgets, all right, it'll be put into basically functions. Okay. So the clock widget, there's a couple of them actually. There's the CPU widget, and you'll look and you'll see, man, this is all that goes into just that, or just this actually, It's like, oh crap, that's a lot. That's a lot of code that you need to get this widget to behave the way it's behaving, right? Now, granted, not all of this might be a little bit more, I don't know, specialized when it comes to the actual process that it's using to get this digit that just changes percent wise and how much of the CPU is actually being used. But overall, I would say this code is kind of like easy comparatively. All right, so volume, same thing. By the way, I actually had to include some stuff. I don't mean to. I think I'm starting to get a little bit like, I don't know, all over the place, and I will try to rein it back in. So here's one of the things. How many people are watching? Almost 30 people. Thanks. So one of the things that I think is special about AwesomeWM is notifications. Okay. For every other window manager, I have used Dunst and have that just manage notifications. It does not work well in combination with AwesomeWM, okay? Especially when you are debugging your configuration files, okay? The reason why is because you'll get a dbus error, okay? It makes no sense when you have basically two notifications running constantly. And in fact, in order to keep debugging on, meant that I basically had to come up with a new plan. Instead of using Dunst, just use what is called the naughty notification center and just use that. And it's a lot harder than you think because let me just look at that real quick. Yeah. Let me go back over here. Notifications. Here we go. Because I wanted it to behave like Dunst, so I had to actually write a lot of configuration code just for I mean, I'd already written Dunce and I'd used it so many times, but to actually like come up with a new configuration for uh, awesome WM notifications, it was very challenging getting this to work correctly. Okay. Um, so when, like I say, super insert, okay, I actually had to write a different volume script than the one I was currently using because I was using Dunst and Dunstify on the old one, and this one didn't allow me to do that. Okay, so I had to kind of like rewrite scripts that I had been using for like a year, easy. Okay, all right. So where am I at? 5:47. I was only going to go for about an hour, guys. So I appreciate those of you. If you have any questions, don't feel bad. Just go ahead and ask them in the chat, and I'll try to get to that. All right, I'm going to go ahead over here and open up my Genie. Actually, you know what? I don't need that at all. So what are the things that I've done? Okay. I've got fast fetch. Oh, that's what I should do. Actually, you know what I should do is I should demonstrate this stuff. Okay, so what I told you before, as far as Super H is concerned, let's go through like all the keybinds a little bit. Okay, so Super Enter is going to launch your terminal. Okay, and I will go ahead, and if you want to resize, it's Super Control right or left. All right. And then if you want to switch them, it will be Super Shift left, Super Shift right. Okay. If you want to, let's say if you want to pop out the screen, okay. So I would say Super Shift and then space bar. And what it does is it basically takes the selected window and then puts it in the middle of the screen as a floater. And now you can basically, holding the super down, you can then move it. If you want, you can right click and then resize it if you want. If you hit Super Shift Enter again, it puts it back into the stack. I always want to make sure that I have that. Can you use AwesomeWM in FreeBSD? Dude, I have no idea. I have no clue. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm such a Debian shill that that I don't know that very much outside of it, truthfully. As far as moving something to a different workspace, a different tag, you just say Super Shift, and then let's say since the terminal is now selected, I'm going to say Super Shift 3. If I don't follow in AwesomeWM, now I do have a way to follow. So let's go back. So if I hit Super 3. You're going to see that the terminal all by itself, okay, so because it's on its own tag. But if I say Super Control 2, notice up here that it actually followed it to 2. So I have two different ways to basically move the window. One in which it's not following the selected window, and the other one where it is. So if you want to, just like, oh, wow, I'm on this and I want to, like, here's my Thunar and I want to just like move it out of the way, I'm going to throw it on Workspace 3. Workspace 3, boom. So it's on. You'll see that it, by the way, if the text is bright, then that means it's occupied. So the rest of these are not occupied. So, and then if you are, if like I'm currently on workspace or tag 1, if I say Super Control 3, I've now put the selected window and it has followed automatically. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but basically to me, there are two use cases. If you can remember the key bindings, most people don't have both. They just have one or the other. There's either a follow or there's not. I wanted to have both, and this was the best way I could see to use it, which was within AwesomeWM, and it's really simple to do it this way. So, like I said, okay, I am going to go while I'm here. Oh, I kept doing that. By the way, I am using Rofi as the application launcher. If I choose to, let me just think, like QIMGV, for example, which was installed, I have certain things that float. And so I should show you that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go Super E. And that would be under variables. Okay. So the variables, basically what is, am I right about that? Yeah. Okay. So variables, for example, if you want something other than just numerics, okay, if you want something for numeric instead of this numeric like tag system, okay, or you could just remove. But let's just say you wanted to use like font awesome here. You could definitely do that. Or if you just wanted to say, let's say I wanted to say www here, okay, and now, so I've changed that particular file. So if I hit Super Shift R, boom, it's up here. It has changed that tag to www instead of the numeric 1. I am going to change that back though. Okay, let's insert 1. And then, okay. There was one thing I wanted to show you though, and I can't remember what. Oh, it was not variables. It was under rules. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Rules. So with rules, for example, hi from Kenya. Holy crap. We've got the international squads today, guys. Thank you very much for showing up. So right here, it says under floating clients, I've basically curated this list here. So, let me show you Tilix in a second, but basically Pavu control, and then a few other things, including that IMGV, are automatically floating. I don't want them part of the tiling stack. So because I've used Tilix here, like I said before, as my default terminal, I use WesTerm, but I kind of like having Tilix in Gwake mode, okay? So if I hit Super Shift Enter, okay, this is Tilix in Gwake mode, and I am going to change a couple things real quick, okay? Ooh, how am I going to do this? Let me see. There we go. So if I go to here and I want to change this to about 70 and make this about 70, okay? And then as far as appearance, global default, here we go. I want same font, so sauce, regular, this, and then this is fine, select. And then if I want to, I can say color, make a little bit more transparent, and there. All right, so if I hit Super Shift Enter again, okay, this is what pops up. And so it basically performs like a scratch pad. So if I hit LS, for example, and then I hit Super Shift Enter again, which is this Tilix in Gwake mode, okay, it goes away. But it's not really gone, because if I hit Super Shift Enter again, it's going to put me back into the same where I left off within the terminal. So it's kind of a nice way to just like have a terminal that is kind of built in as far as a scratch pad. But it is not the one that I use kind of like every day, or for 90%. I use WesTerm. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit Super Q, which is to close. Super Q is to close. Okay. So I started at 5 o'clock. It is at 5 o'clock. That's Eastern time, and it's almost 6 o'clock Eastern time. And I am probably going to sign off in a minute or two, but I wanted to, again to thank you for sticking around and watching the stream for the last better part of an hour. And I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.